The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani. And that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, Joinet Radio, where they keep you inspired and informed, and they broadcast Black Focus Radio daily from 12 to 2 p.m. Central Time. And, of course, don't forget about ribrub.com, where we show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh, yeah. You know, I like to say, and I say I because that's my product, give me your hand and I'll take you all down through barbecue land. Catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And while you're out there on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Don't forget to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It is the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address ourselves, and using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I like to say? Just don't say it. So today we got a big show. In fact, every time we do this, we have a big show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Of course, I'm going to talk about the Carmelo Anthony case, and of course, Jeff, the father of the young man who was killed. We're going to talk about him and his racist trending post. You know, I always like to say birds of a feather flock together, or I should say raise up a child the way he should go, and thus he will never depart. We are pretty clear on what Austin Metcalf stood for as it relates to Jeff Metcalf. Also, we're going to talk about, let's see what else, a conversation of stupidity that I got in on Facebook, and we got to talk about that. Also, remember the guy I played last week with the daring Black people to do the Asian boycott? Apparently he's been got to by some of his Asian counterparts, and they pulled the video down. Oh, wow. And I'm going to ask you the question, what exactly has history done to white people? Okay? Because we know what white people's history did to us. But I'm going to tell you, as we examine this, and I don't think anybody has ever really looked at this, history has done something to white people, and that's probably why we're still living in the time that we're living in today. Okay? So, by the way, I want to remind you that my book is out. It's called The Pain of Vengeance. You can get it on Instagram, Amazon. Tell you what, send me an email at thepainofvengeance@gmail.com. There are some glitches going on with Amazon right now relating to the book, and we're trying to work that out. It's not on our end, it's actually on Amazon's end, and we'll get that taken care of. But in the meantime, I want to tell all my friends that just send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com, and I'll send you a direct link on how you can purchase the book. Because if you go out and you try to purchase the book or search for the book on Amazon, it brings up the old copy, which cannot be purchased. And it's really causing some problems with my readers, and it's really becoming frustrated. So I'm firing off a very tense letter to Amazon here real soon, because the original publisher is no longer available and I cannot get in contact with them. There's got to be a remedy. So I just wanted to let you know about that, and I'll continue to talk about that until the issue is resolved. All right? So today on Black Focus, I'm going to be a storyteller. Okay? I'm an author, but I'm going to tell you a story. And tell you what, before we do that, let's go ahead and do Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Okay, today on Black Facts, I'm going to tell you a story. And this story is going to relate to the entire show today. And I thought about this because I used to do rites of passage camps. And one of the things that I would start the camp off is with this story. And it's called The Eagle and the Chicken. Okay? So one day there was a farmer who was out taking care of his farm. And by his barn, he found an egg. And the egg wasn't broken. It was still intact. So instead of cracking the egg or throwing it away, he decided to take it to his chicken coop. And he placed that egg inside of a hen's nest. So the hen, being the mother hen that they are, sat on the egg along with the other eggs, and eventually it hatched. She fed the egg, nurtured the egg, and the hatchling began to grow. The other chickens in the coop that was hatched in this egg, his brothers and sisters, looked at him and thought, "Oh, how peculiar is our brother and sister, but we're going to love him anyway." So as the other hatchling grew, he really began to look different. His beak was bigger. It looked stronger. His claws were longer. And then, of course, his coat wasn't yellow like the others. It was colored. So other chickens in the barnyard used to make fun of this particular chicken. Of course, this chicken grew up. And as he grew in the barnyard, he did the same things that chickens do. Well, what did he do? He scratched and clawed around and cock-a-doodle-dooed like the hens and climbed up on the fence post. And every morning you could hear him say, or at least attempt to say, cock-a-doodle-doo when the sun rose. The problem is that his cock-a-doodle-doo wasn't as good as the other young roosters for whatever reasons they didn't know. Of course, there were fights in the barnyard as well. The other young roosters would fight this young rooster. And they ended up squabbling, and he ended up injuring a young rooster because he finally got fed up with being bullied by the other roosters. So he decided to strike back. And he really injured the other young rooster. He was ostracized by other chickens in the barnyard. He was not being fed properly anymore by his mother hen. Although she loved him, but she loved him from afar. Finally, one day, there was a shadow that was casted over the barnyard. And all of the chickens was running around like chickens with their heads cut off because they were in fear, because they knew that shadow that kept circling over the barnyard was not there for any good. In fact, periodically that shadow would swoop down and snatch some of those smaller chickens and feed on them. So all of the chickens, when they saw the shadow, they panicked and they ran inside the chicken coop for safety. But this other young little chicken didn't run. He stood there, amazed. He looks up and he sees these huge wings. And all of a sudden, that bird that was flying in the sky, circling the chicken coop, swooped down. And just as he was getting ready to attack this other young chicken, the only one that was in the barnyard, he stopped in front of him. And he asked. He looked at him. He stared at him. He got closer, even though he could see, because the bird circling the barnyard was an eagle. And with his eagle eye, he could see that little chicken down there in the barnyard. As he saw him, he too was perplexed that that chicken wasn't running. But that chicken looked different. So when he finally swooped down and stood in front of that chicken, he got a bird's eye view, up close and personal. He looked at that bird, the smaller one, and he looked at himself. That bird, the small one, had the same coat. That bird, the smaller one, had the same claws. He had the same beak. And then the big eagle decided to ask, "Boy, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" And the young bird looked up at the bigger bird, not in fear, but in curiosity. He says, "What do you think I'm doing? I'm a chicken. I am looking for worms. I walk around, and every morning I try to get up and crow like the other chickens do." And the eagle looked at him and said, "Do you see something different about me, or something similar about me and you?" He said, "Look at my beak, and look at your beak. They're the same. Look at my feathers and the colors on my feathers. They're the same. Look at my talons. You call them claws. We call them talons. These are used to hunt. Yours are just like mine. Spread your wings. Can you fly?" He said, "Oh, no, sir. I've never flown. The best thing I can do is jump up on the fence post and say cock-a-doodle-doo. And I don't do that very well." The eagle looked at him and said, "That's because you're not a rooster." "Oh, yes, I am. Everybody around me has called me a rooster. My mom is a hen." The eagle took the back of his wing and slapped the boy, knocked him down. The young rooster got back up and said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Because I needed to slap some sense into you. Because, son, let me just be honest with you. You are not a chicken. You are an eagle. And no matter what people have told you, no matter what people have shown you, I'm telling you, you are an eagle." And the young eaglet kept denying that he was an eagle. And finally, the eagle decided to pick him up. He reached out one of his gigantic claws and surrounded him, and all the other chickens in the barnyard started screaming and hollering, and before they knew it, they were gone. And the eagle flew fast, and he flew high. When he got to a certain altitude, he dropped the eaglet. And the eaglet screamed. He just knew his death was imminent because he was going to crash into the ground. So the eagle flew down beside him as he was falling, and the eagle was just gliding and soaring and gliding. And the eagle looked at him and said, "Fool, stick your wings out." The eaglet did that. It captured his fall a little bit, but he was still tumbling. And then the eagle said, "Fool, flap your wings." The little eaglet did that as well. And all of a sudden, he was caught on a breeze. And he began to soar and fly. In fact, he started liking it. And he was doing flips and somersaults and things of that nature. And finally, he flew back to the chicken coop. And the eagle followed him. He got there and he said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Now I can jump on the fence post just like the roosters do with no problems." And the eagle drew back his wing and slapped him again. And the eaglet said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Because you are a fool. You are not a chicken. You are an eagle. You are the most majestic bird in the world. People fear you. Have you noticed your beak and your claws and how you're bigger and stronger and muscular than the other chickens that you were hatched with?" He said, "Yeah." "So you're an eagle. And eagles fly high." Finally, things began to dawn on the little eaglet, and he jumped, took off running and jumped and spreaded his wings and easily soared over the fence in the chicken coop. Because he had all of a sudden began to realize he was really an eagle. Now, what's the moral of this story? The moral is that there are people who will try to gaslight you and tell you things that you don't know just to control and manipulate you. They will say things about you behind your back. They will turn your friends against you. They will also bully you because they're bigger than you. But once you decide who you are and what you stand for, once you realize that you are an eagle and not a chicken, things change. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
I hope you enjoyed that. This Black Fact is part of what we're going to talk about today on a number of levels. As I said, I used to do that Black Fact at my rites of passage camps, because so many of our young people have been told that they're one thing. They've been told that they're chickens. They've lost their identities when they are really eagles. And it's important for us to begin to reestablish their identity. Their identity is not a drug dealer. Their identity is not a womanizer. Their identity is not a gang member. Their real identity is sons of kings and queens who built the world. And more, our children not only need to hear it, but we need to take them up in the air and drop them and tell them to spread and flap their wings. And you do that by teaching them history. We'll take our first break. When we come back, we want to get into the watermelon felon comments. by Jeff Metcalf. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. Hey friends, David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Products and ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com. It's where you will find the best dry marinade for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats and vegetables. We're gearing up for a very busy season, so I want you to make sure you take advantage of the great sale we've got going on right now. It's the Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box. It comes in 3 great flavors: hot and spicy, original, or scorching, or a 4th combination box. What is a Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box? Well, I'm glad you asked. You get 3 bags of Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub, 3 bags of Coleman's Dynamic Rib Nuts, a bag of Coleman's Dynamic Fry Dust, and of course, you get a bottle of rib juice, pepper juice, and rib dust. You can't beat that. Order a Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box today and get a digital copy of the Coleman's Dynamic Recipe Book. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now is the time to place that order for Coleman's Dynamic Gift Box before the holiday rush. And remember, bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah, at ribrub.com.
Attention entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and soon-to-be 501c3 organizations. My name is David W. Coleman, and I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for funding for your business or organization? The new year is upon us, and it's time to get those grant proposals ready. Deadlines for submittals will arrive quickly, and I can help you put your best business foot forward. There are multiple funding sources available to assist you in completing your mission. You just need to know where to look. If you are new to proposal writing and need tips on where to search for funding, this seminar is for you. I'll help you demystify some of the myths relating to grant writing. I'll give you great proposal writing tips to help you get your submission in the A-pile. I'll point you to funding sources that most people ignore when pursuing assistance. It doesn't matter if you are new to the game or a veteran in this space. I have no doubt there is information you can utilize to get the dollars flowing to your business or organization. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but tried and effective methods to be successful. If you want to know more, respond with the word grants in the comments below, and I will send you information on the very next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. In the meantime, keep looking for that funding, and I'll see you at the next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. A lot of stuff to talk about since we last spoke. The Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony case has been decided. And we're going to talk about that here in this segment, and we may take it through the rest of this hour. But I think it's important for us to understand, and I warned you all on last week's show that Carmelo Anthony was going to be convicted. I knew that. You see, I'm old enough to know this court system in America. The black defendant is never going to get the benefit of the doubt. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about Calvin Duncan. Remember, Calvin Duncan was the county court clerk who was elected to office. Calvin Duncan had served over 20 years in prison in the state of Louisiana. By the way, for a case or a crime that he never committed. It took him over 20 years before it was resolved and proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Calvin Duncan had nothing to do with that case or that crime. But he spent 20 years of his life in prison. But the one thing about Mr. Duncan is that he just didn't let his mind go to crap. He studied to become an attorney. He was considered the jailhouse attorney. And when he got out, and by the way, the reason he said he wanted to be an attorney is because he wanted to prove his innocence. And then when he ran for the criminal court clerk's position, he wanted to make sure that what happened to him would never happen to anyone else. Because one of the things that happened is the criminal court clerk refused to give him the necessary evidence needed to beat his case. He was unfortunately blocked from taking office, even though he was voted on, won in an election, because the white legislature in Louisiana didn't want him to be the criminal court clerk. Okay? That's just that story. But there are numerous other stories that we've seen. Okay? Zimmerman. He made a living off of killing Trayvon Martin. We can go on and on. Remember the cop who went into Botham John's house, his apartment, shot and killed him, and then pretended like she thought he was a robber, and there were so many people trying to get her off. She murdered this guy. She didn't get as much time as Carmelo Anthony did. We see case after case after case after case of black victims being murdered by white people, and those white people either getting off or getting reduced sentences. Even Dan Patrick in Texas, by the way, had a friend who was caught molesting a young boy who was a friend of his son. The man who molested this young boy spent 1 day in prison. We see the president of the United States. You all do realize that there have only been, there's actually been 3 actual attacks, at least terroristic attacks on America. One of them they talk about all the time. That's 9/11. Osama bin Laden. Even today, police would try to say, well, we're going to investigate you because 9/11. Well, 9/11 was, 15 years ago? But the 2 other cases that they don't talk about is, first, Timothy McVeigh. Those were terrorists. He was a terrorist. That is the worst terrorist attack, domestic terrorist attack in America, done by an American. Now, there were others that we can refer back to, because we certainly can refer back to the Red Summer. But the amount of people that were murdered at the Mirror Federal Building was committed by a white boy. Okay? Sans the Red Summer. The other terrorist attack was actually authored and supported by a former president of the United States. That president was Donald J. Trump on January 6th. And guess what? We saw that same criminal, Donald J. Trump, try to, number one, he pardoned all of them. And number 2, He tried to pay them from our tax dollars. So we see this all the time. So I set that up for you because, as I said last week, I knew that Austin Metcalf was going to be found guilty. And certainly after you got an all-white jury, those are the same juries that were hanging black people back in the day. Hanging kids back in the day. Kids like George Stennett Jr. You know, George Stennett Jr. was only, 12 years old when they hung him? He couldn't even, they put him in the electric chair. He was so small that they had to put books under him so his head could reach the crown that electrocuted him. Hello? You ought to know that, did you? By the way, they made a movie about this. You need to go look at the movie. And it's not what you think. So, uproar has ensued since the conviction of Carmelo Anthony. There was a white boy who did something similar. He got 10 years. Carmelo Anthony got 35 years. And I got to be honest with you, it's sad that it had to come to this. But now that we've heard his dad, Carmelo Anthony said he was being bullied. Apparently that didn't go over at all in court. But now that we've heard his dad, and by the way, thanks, Jeff, because you know what? Hopefully that information that you put out in that post after the trial can be used as evidence that your son was a bigot and a racist. Because there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that's what you are. There's an old saying, train up a child as he should go, and thus he will never depart. In other words, if you teach a child how to read, then that child will grow up reading. If you teach a child how to do math, that child will grow up and love math. If you teach your child how to sing, that child will grow up and like to sing or play the piano. It goes on and on and on. If you teach a child how to be a racist, that child will grow up and be a racist. And it just so happens that Jeff Metcalf was raising at least two racists. They were twin brothers. Austin Metcalf decided, and by the way, typically when you're a racist, you're also a bully. And especially when you are 6'1" and weigh 225 pounds. It's very easy to bully a 5'10", 160-pound kid, especially a black kid. Those were the measurements. Metcalf was the 225-pound bully. Anthony was the 160-pound, quote-unquote, weakling. Now, for Carmelo Anthony to have that reaction of actually stabbing and killing someone, that anger just didn't happen that day. This apparently had been going on. Or he's been bullied. Part of the reason why he probably carried a knife. Now, let me be clear. I don't condone that violence at all. But at some point, white people are going to have to start understanding. You need to stop messing with black folks. Because, see, history, this is why later on I'm going to talk about what history has done to white people. Because, see, history, the lack thereof in teaching that, has shown you that you can do anything you want to white people and to black people and get away with it. See, they don't talk to you about Nat Turner. They don't talk to you about Marcus Garvey. They don't talk about those people. They don't talk about the multiple slave revolts that went on during slavery. The lie is that black people, we just sang and danced all the time, and we loved us some slavery, and we loved Massa and his children. That is the biggest lie ever told. They don't talk to you about what happened in Haiti and how Haiti in 1787 was the first American, or I should say Western country, to fight and abolish slavery. They don't talk to you about that. They want you to believe, and I say they, the white establishment, wants you to believe that black people were just these docile little creatures, these animals. They weren't even human. You see, they wanted to make sure and put forth the argument that black people weren't human. They were 3/5 of a human. Because that way they could justify killing and maiming and subjugating something that wasn't human. They could put us in zoos and they could experiment on our bodies. Henrietta Lacks is a classic example of that. How Johns Hopkins right here in Baltimore and other pharmaceutical industries made billions of dollars off of Henrietta Lacks's sales until they were sued by the family. You see, that's what they wanted you to believe, is that, oh, black people aren't human anyway. So it's okay to show up at a hanging for it to be announced in the local paper. Photographers show up and take pictures of a black man hanging. Part of the reason that we have these pictures is that photographers literally took pictures of black people hanging from trees and being burned. And then they would sell them on postcards. And white people would buy them and send them to their friends in other parts of the country. So that's how we know all those things happened. That's why now the Trump administration and Project 2025 is trying to get rid of African history altogether. They don't want it in the museums. Our children go in and it makes them upset. I've told you the story about even the black woman who didn't want her daughter to be taught about the Tulsa race riot, or I should say the Tulsa race massacre. That's why they're doing this. So, with that being said, now that the trial is over, Jeffrey Metcalf, the son of Austin Metcalf, the deceased, decided to get on social media and just rant. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I thought about playing it, the video and the audio, but I changed my mind. I will talk about racist, but I won't allow them my platform. But if you want to see it, it's all over social media. And boy, let me just say this again. And boy, we understand now. We understand. You see, if dad is a racist, if he's walking around like a chicken and he's something else, we realize it. We may not have known it. They tried to sanitize Austin Metcalf, but dad exposed his son by the words that he said in that video. Okay? Let me just say this. There are a lot of things that went on with that trial. There are pictures of the judge, the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney, and Jeffrey Metcalf together at some event. I asked a friend who was a legal attorney, should this show concern? And she wouldn't speculate. But quite often, judges and attorneys, DAs get together and go out for drinks, may have been friends. I thought maybe it would have been a conflict of interest. Some people say it could be, but not necessarily. I think it could be. I think it could be. Also, the attorney for Anthony, Carmelo Anthony, and the DA used to have a law firm together. Hello? I would tend to believe that if under this appeal, I would tend to believe that appeal would have. See, this is another reason why you shouldn't always think that a white man is going, because we see this all the time. I'm gonna get me a white attorney because a white attorney he gonna give me better representation than a black attorney. Well, I wonder if Carmelo Anthony's family did research on this guy and understood that he and the DA at one point was in part of the same firm. Because if they were part of the same firm, then that means that they were friends. I'm just saying. So, as I said, I knew Carmelo was going to be guilty. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You don't even care about the appearance of impropriety because you get rid of all the black jurors, potential black jurors, all white jurors. They didn't even care about that. The argument was, well, they filled out the questionnaire and said that they couldn't be impartial because they were black. Well, part of the reason that they couldn't have been impartial, if that's true, is because many of those black jurors probably have experienced racism in this country. In fact, I would argue that every damn one of them, even those that are conservative, they'll try to write it off, but at least, and this is why I tell black jurors, when you go into these courts and you have these questionnaires to fill out, lie. They don't know you're lying. If they say, well, if you got a black defendant and they say, well, can you be impartial or not and administer the death penalty based on the evidence? Yes, I can, Your Honor. And then when you go to trial, you lock that jury. You got to start playing their game, just like they're playing a game. You understand that, right? Tell you what, let's do this. Let's take another break, and then we're going to get into this Jeffrey Metcalf thing. I just needed to set that up, okay? So we'll go ahead and take another break. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Barbecue season is here, and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all-natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Attention entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and soon-to-be 501c3 organizations. My name is David W. Coleman, and I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for funding for your business or organization? The new year is upon us, and it's time to get those grant proposals ready. Deadlines for submittals will arrive quickly, and I can help you put your best business foot forward. There are multiple funding sources available to assist you in completing your mission. You just need to know where to look. Look, if you are new to proposal writing and need tips on where to search for funding, this seminar is for you. I'll help you demystify some of the myths relating to grant writing. I'll give you great proposal writing tips to help you get your submission in the A-Pile. I'll point you to funding sources that most people ignore when pursuing assistance. It doesn't matter if you are new to the game or a veteran in this space. I have no doubt there is information you can utilize to get the dollars flowing to your business or organization. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but tried and effective methods to be successful. If you want to know more, respond with the word grants in the comments below, and I will send you information on the very next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. In the meantime, keep looking for that funding, and I'll see you at the next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We're talking about this Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case, the aftermath. People are upset all over the country. Black people are upset. And I understand why you're upset, but you got to understand, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next hour, but you got to start doing things to keep your son or your daughter out of the system. Because no matter the way you look at it, they're not going to get a fair trial. They're not. Not in this justice system. This justice system is designed to put your ass away, your children away. And more so now because many of these judges and politicians are being paid off by private prisons. So your child is a commodity. So when I lock them up, I'll make an average of $21,000 a year on locking that person up. And that person, let's just think about this for a minute. You lock up 10 black people and that prison is making $21,000 a year. Some of them are more based on where they're located. Then you're talking about $100,000 just for 10 inmates a year. What about 20? What about 30? What about 50? What about 100? You get this, right? Your child, your black body is a commodity. And then they turn around and sell your services to businesses and they pay that inmate $1 a day. And that business makes money by having them to press their clothes or whatever the case may be. But anyway, that's another part of the story that we can get into another day. I want to talk about Jeff Metcalf, the racist. He exposed himself. He called Carmelo Anthony the watermelon felon. Okay? Where did that come from? Here's some of the other things he said. He spoke with Sarah Fields on a podcast called Jinx Sip. He held nothing back as he spoke for nearly 3 hours straight. After revealing that gag order had been lifted, Jeff called Carmelo Anthony's parents, called out his parents. He said they abandoned their child, adding, "I guess he's no more use to you because you can't get any more GoFundMe money or go send me money. You are grifters. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You raised that child, and I swear to God, CPS should come and check on those other 3 that you still have. You never once admitted or took accountability. You tried to play the victim." Well, wait a minute, Jeff. Your child was accused of bullying, and you never admitted that your child was a bully. In fact, your child's brother, who was his twin, was also accused of bullying. From what I read early in this case, both of them were bullies. You, Jeff Metcalf, never said a word. You never admitted that you had 2 bullies. And now that I've heard your rants, I understand why you never admitted. By the way, Jeff, you never admitted that you were a racist. But you did, but you didn't know you did. Because see, that's what racists are. They're so stupid, they say what they are even without saying it. And then they want to challenge other people for calling them a racist. That's what boggles my mind. Look, if you're not a racist, then look, let me ask you. Remember the story of the eagle and the chicken? If you weren't an eagle, how did you get those claws and those long wingspan and that beak, that powerful beak? So when other people called you, when the chicken flew down, the eagle flew down and confronted the eaglet and said, "Hey, fool, you're not a chicken, you're an eagle." You get this? So when you begin to show evidence that you are an eagle, in this case, Jeff being a racist, then guess what? You are a racist. He continued to claim that he stood in prayer with the family in hopes to close the gap on this unbelievable racial divide. Now that's laughable. How can you say you tried to close the gap on the racial divide when you got on social media for 3 straight hours and espoused racism? You see, I don't care how angry you are. Look, that was a tragedy to lose your son. But all of a sudden, I'm not going to turn a racist because I lost my son. And by the way, if you are a Christian, as these white people try to claim, I always say that Christianity to white people is an oxymoron. It's kind of like jumbo shrimp. It just doesn't make any sense. They protest or proclaim Christianity, but their actions are just the opposite. So you said you tried to pray with the family to bridge the widening gap, yet you get on social media and call Carmelo Anthony a watermelon felon? And oh, by the way, don't give me that mess. Oh, he was just upset. He was angry. Well, wait a minute. His son didn't die yesterday. You've had time enough, not necessarily to heal, but really get your thoughts together. And certainly you shouldn't be going on social media or on a podcast and espousing racist ideologies. Let me go on. He continued to call out everyone pulling the race card. That's another classic example of white people who are racist. The first thing they want to say is, "Oh, you're playing the race card." Because they don't want you talking about race. Okay? He said he is not racist, but is racist against assholes. Excuse my vernacular. I don't like them. I could care less about the color of your skin. We all bleed the same color. Well, if that's the case, why did you call Carmelo Anthony a watermelon felon? Why did you use that racist trope along other things? He called somebody, Drew, you're a P-U-S-S-Y and a coward and you raised one. Kayla, you're a dumb B. What you do to that boy to make him stab somebody. So Drew and Kayla is his mother and father. Carmelo Anthony's mother and father. My God, what kind of mother are you? He continued to taunt folks, pulling the race card and offers to make up a racist name for Carmelo Anthony, dubbing him the watermelon felon. Hello? Wow. Oh, he dubbed Carmelo Anthony. He said, "Anthony Watermelon Felon." How's that one strike you? I hope he enjoyed his first night in the cell last night, because he's going to have many nights to think about what the F he did. The remarks came alongside an extended attack on Anthony's parents, Andrew Anthony and Kayla Hayes, whom he accused of abandoning their son and profiting from his case. He called them grifters. We talked about that. He went further, calling Andrew Anthony a coward and directing a misogynistic slur to Hayes, calling her the B word. What you do to that boy to make him stab somebody. Metcalf insisted in the same interview that he's not racist, saying he's only racist against a-holes, and that we all bleed the same color. He also invoked the phrase black fatigue, telling listeners, you've embarrassed your own culture and race. Okay. So, again, what I'm going to ask you, Jeffrey, the Ku Klux Klan, the Closet Klansman. That's what we're going to start calling him. Jeffrey, the Closet Klansman. That's what we're going to call him. Yep. Jeffrey, the Closet Klansman Metcalf. Because that's what a lot of these white people are. You see, those people that put forth 2020, Project 2025, guess what? They were closet Klansmen. See, we told y'all they done took off the hoods. They're just wearing suits and ties now. They're all over our legislatures across the country. They're all through our country. They're all through our government. We're seeing that more and more and more. We've been telling you over and over again that they're all through the police department. Arkansas just fired a policeman who, if it wasn't for his wife, and you see, I can't believe that she wasn't racist because she was married to a racist. She knew he was a racist. And then they go through a divorce and then she exposes him. Well, wait a minute. Why didn't you expose him before then? Because you were a racist. You were sleeping with a racist. You know that old movie, Sleeping with the Enemy? No, you're sleeping with a racist. So, at the end of the day, what Jeffrey Metcalf did last week in this interview has really, well, it has a lot of bearing on the case. Remember I told you train up a child the way he should go and thus he will never depart? You see, I know for a fact, you know for a fact, that racism is a learned response. You're not born racist. It's a learned response. We see all the time, you put a black kid and a white kid of the same age, 2 and 3 year old together, they will play together. They don't look at each other's color. They play and have fun. They grow up and they have friends. And then, of course, parents step in. Why you messing with that black so-and-so? I saw a story just yesterday. A young lady lives in this town in South Carolina. I'm not going to call it out because it was on social media. And this town, the town that she lives in, was actually a slave town. And there was, when she started going to junior high, there was a young white boy who liked her. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't doubt that that young white boy had heard some words from his male friends or parents or relatives who said, get you a black girl. You ain't had sex until you had a black girl. Y'all do know that that trope is still out there, right? That's part of the reason a lot of white boys want to sleep with black women. That's not an exaggeration. That's a fact. In fact, I had a friend in college who told me his dad told him that, and his dad was the sheriff of the town that he went in, that he grew up in. So the young girl said the boy wanted to walk her home, and she would always get off the bus earlier so that walking into this black area, they wouldn't see this white boy. She apparently liked him too. One day her grandmother saw him walking with her. And her grandmother asked him the question, not her. She asked, do your parents know that this girl is black? Hello? You see, racism has always been here. And that young man I hope he wasn't seeing race. He was seeing a pretty little black girl that he liked. The point is that racism is not inbred in us. It is taught in us. See, they taught us to understand that there were certain areas in the town that you grew up in that you didn't go. When I was growing up, we didn't go to Pleasant Valley in Little Rock. That's where I grew up. Tell you a quick story, and I'm gonna go to the top of the hour. A few years ago, I drove Uber. And I decided to go out on New Year's Eve night. That was the big night. This was just a few years ago. I went up in the Heights. That's what we called it. Pleasant Valley. That's where the rich white people lived. I picked up 2 white girls from a party. Very attractive, both in miniskirts. It was New Year's Eve morning, and it was something like 20 degrees that night. I was making good money. To show you how what you learn as a child sticks with you all your life. The 2 girls got in the car. It wasn't 2 minutes before one of them said, "Hey, can you pull over? My friend is about to throw up." And she was about to throw up because she was drunk. Okay? I pulled over immediately by a light pole. They got out and they started both regurgitating, bending over, regurgitating. They left the door open. You could see them clearly. I looked back, and unbeknownst to me, when I first looked back, you could see under their skirts, because when I say they were mini skirts, they were mini skirts. They had nothing on underneath those skirts. Instead of me as a man leering at them, I panicked. Do you know why I panicked? I panicked because there were 2 white girls in Pleasant Valley that were throwing up on the side of my car, by the side of my car, with no panties on, bending over, and you could clearly see everything. And I thought immediately in a split second that if the police rolled by, I'm in trouble. I'm a grown-ass man. What I had been taught about Pleasant Valley as a child and the Heights as a child immediately popped in my head. I'm in the wrong area for this to be happening. And I told them, I said, "Look, y'all need to get it together, get in the car. I'm gonna leave. You got 2 minutes." They forcibly said, "Well, I think you may need to leave because we're gonna be here for a while." I closed the door, rolled off. Racism and the effects of racism is learned. It's not taught. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you'd like to join the show, you can also send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. Fortunately, I hadn't been getting an email from racists. Look, I don't cower from racists. I just don't. I tell the story all the time about how a racist tried to intimidate my daughter. He was from Pittsburgh. My daughter lived in Chicago, and I called him and told him that I'd be coming to visit him. He stopped intimidating my daughter. You see, here's what I tell people. See, when white people realize that you as a black person, you're going to fight back, their racism will disappear. At least publicly will disappear. They'll talk about their friends, talk about it to their friends, but they won't be racist to you in public. They won't bully you in public. And what I said when I started the segment about Austin Metcalf is that, see, his dad had taught him to be a racist. His dad had taught him that black people were docile. Did I ever tell you about the time that I was a Boy Scout, 14 years old? I went to Cimarron, New Mexico, to Philmont Scout Ranch. It is the ultimate scouting adventure. I don't even know. I think Philmont is still open. This is where you had to be a certain age. You had to have a certain rank in scouting. At least a scout first class. I think at that point I was a star first class. Scouting was great for me. Okay? And so I was nominated to go to Philmont along with a good friend of mine, Jeffrey Hampton. You all may know him. He's from Little Rock. He's now a minister in a white church, by the way. We were the only two black people. We had a black counselor to go with us as well. And we had to ride the bus to Mexico, to New Mexico. And we were the only 3 black people on there. And of course, 2 of us were scouts and the other one was a counselor. You went to Philmont, you went to base camp, they fed you well, and then the next morning you were shipped or driven to various parts of the camp up in the mountains. And the ultimate adventure, as I said, and it's still one of the best adventures, and I've done a lot of great things that I've ever been on. You had to hike back through mountain passes, over rivers. You had to avoid bears. I mean, you were in a national forest. You went through national parks where you couldn't even build fires in some of these places. You see, you had to eat off the land. You had to fish in the streams. You had to have people split up and go pick up supplies and meet you 10 miles down the path. That was an adventure. I got introduced to mini bears. A mini bear was what they call the chipmunks, because if you weren't careful and you left something out, the mini bears would attack your packs. And by the way, we had to have packs on our back. Okay? Packs and sleeping bags and tents. We carried our cooking utensils. We had to string our anything that had flavor, toothpaste. It didn't matter. Dish soap, any of that. It had to be put in a bag, and we had to do what is called bear bags and take a rope and string it between 2 trees to keep the bears from coming in and tearing up our packs. One day, we ran out of supplies, or we knew we were going to run out of supplies. So a group, along with the counselors, decided to go to a refilling station that was miles away from the camp. They left that morning to get our supplies so we could continue our trip, walking through the mountains, hiding from, or at least avoiding bears and snakes and mountain lions and you name it. So, a group of the white boys that didn't go with the counselors stayed at the camp and decided that they were going to bully me and Jeff. If you go and talk to Jeff, he'll tell you that when they realized, because I was standing by the fire, and all of us carried sticks, walking sticks, okay? And I had my walking stick at the time that I had fabricated out of a piece of a tree limb to help you stabilize yourself. It helps you get through helps you get through creeks and all kinds of things. Those of you who have camped and hiked, you know what I'm talking about. I was standing by the fire, and Homer and Hardy Cherry decided that they were going to take us on. They were going to beat up the niggers, along with a few other guys on that trip. White boys. Remember, I was standing by the fire. I slowly stuck my walking stick into the fire. I had it in my hand like this, and I stuck the other hand into the fire. And they approached us. And when I pulled the walking stick out, they saw that it was fire red hot. And I think they decided that I don't think I want to be beaten with that fire red hot poker by that nigger. And they backed off. About 15 minutes later, the leaders walked into the camp with our supplies, and clearly they knew something was going on. Now, Jeff will tell you today that if it wasn't for me playing in that fire with that walking stick, we probably would have been fighting. But I guess they felt like, oh, that little black boy right there, he ain't playing. But see, they didn't know that this little black boy, his brother was one of the biggest drug dealers in Little Rock. And I wasn't no punk. I was only 14, but I wasn't no punk. And neither was Jeff. Now, I tell you that story because white people will bully you if you don't get them off of you. And what we're seeing more and more and more is black people ain't gonna take that stuff. And I'm saying this to white people who dare to listen to this show, is that whatever you're teaching your children about the past, about history, is a lie. Because many black people fought. Many black people died rather than be slaves. Many black people even walked into the Atlantic Ocean. Many black people jumped off ships than to be slaves. That line in Black Panther was so profound. You see, you all have got to understand that we're not taking that. I'm 65 years old. I've never taken it. That's why I just gave you that example at Philmont. And even in my age right now, if you approach me, you might whoop my ass, white boy. But I'm going to tell you like this. You better bring your lunch because it's going to be an all-day sucker. Your best bet, because see, I'm going to tell you also, America is never going to be all white. You can forget about it. It never was all white, and it never will be all white. And I try to tell people all of this immigration crap has to do with white people understanding that they are minorities in America. That's their fear. Their biggest fear is that black people and minorities are going to do them the way they did us. That was the argument with South Africa and the Afrikaners. They were afraid that because they had treated black people so poorly and so badly that once they came into power, that they would be treated the same. So y'all better wake up here. Y'all better wake up. Because black people ain't going nowhere. And we sure as hell ain't going back. Not at all. Not at all. Okay. So, I wanted to follow up on that. And I think it's important for us to understand that we cannot be afraid to speak our minds about these things. Because it is important for us to understand. And that's what I mean by what history has done to white people. History has done more damage to you in some respect than it did to black people. Now, no, you weren't enslaved, but it's changed your mentality. Or I should say, it's been the same mentality for white people since their inception. They've been a warring people. Go back and look at history. Look at the Greeks. Look at the Romans. Look at the Spanish. Look at the Europeans. They've always been warring nations. You know, people always say, well, you know, black people had slaves. Well, even if you use the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, even if you use the Bible, who was Joseph? Wasn't Joseph sold into slavery by his brother? And then Joseph rose to be a king. Wait a minute, he was a slave. How did he become a king? You get my point here? So a lot of things that you all are teaching your young people, your white young people, is flawed. And it's going to get them killed like Austin Metcalf. Because he thought, and I'm sorry, I don't feel sorry for a racist. Like they say, only good racist is a dead racist. He was a racist. And clearly we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that his daddy was a racist. I didn't know it at first. I didn't know the family. I just knew the story about Austin Metcalf was bullying this little black boy. 225 pounds versus 160 pounds. Carmelo Anthony was considered skinny. Let me say that again. Because I can weigh those weights in my mind. I can visualize that in my mind because I grew up playing football. In high school, I was only 175 pounds. And I was considered small. Now, Carmelo Anthony was 160 pounds. He was 15 pounds lighter than me. I knew friends who was like 225. One of my dear friends, Richard Richardson, in high school, he was like 230. I knew others who were 6'2", that was 230. So I can see that weight disparity. And I can see Carmelo Anthony, the young brother, thinking, man, this guy bigger than me. I got to find something to get him off me. And in all likelihood, Carmelo Anthony had been bullied before. You just don't automatically have that reaction over one bully or one-time bully. He had been bullied before. That's the things that's not coming out about this case. So now we know his dad is a racist. And now we know why, by just extrapolating some things out about what his dad said. Now we know. We know that your son was a racist, taught by his daddy and probably his mama. You understand what I'm saying here? And I don't care if you're mad. We got to confront these things to what they are. Racism is alive and well in America. And we've seen it over the last, 20 years, more so than ever. The Tea Party was born out of racism because there was a black man who had been elected president and they panicked. And out of the Tea Party came MAGA, who was racist. And you all can hide yourself behind Bible verses and waving the Bible all you want. You're still a racist. You're still a racist. Yeah, we know now. We know now. So what racism has done to white people is really made you stupid. It really made you liars. Racism really made you blasphemers. Racism made you pedophiles and rapists and murderers. This is what racism has done to you. Yeah, I know you're mad. Yeah, that's good. I would say maybe it'll make you think, but it's pretty clear that you all don't want to think. You want to hold on to your bigotry and your racism. You do it every day. You see it every day. I saw an old woman the other day on social media, and I'm glad they filmed her. She had to be in her 70s or 80s. She could have been in her 40s because, they look old when they early on. But she was an old woman. She could barely walk. She was elderly. She had a car. Apparently these delivery guys had blocked her in. And she was upset. And she started wailing, calling them names and everything else. And one of the guys said, well, ma'am, all you had to do was ask us to move. We're just delivering. We're going to be done here in a moment. We're sorry if we block you in. And they just went, and she just kept wailing on her and wailing on them and wailing on them. And then finally she got in her car, and the guy walks up to her and he starts apologizing and talking to her. And before she left, she called him a nigger. You see, that was already in her. She wanted to do it while she was out of her car, but she was afraid. She called him the N-word and sped off. This is what they do, folks. I'm like this at this point in my life. And actually, I've been this way for a long time. Before, and I learned this from a dear friend of mine in college who was white. I thought he was my friend, as did, I learned it actually from a lot of my friends that were white, that I thought were my friends in high school and college. You know how I learned that they were racist? Their social media accounts. Before I go to break, let me just tell you this quick story. You know, I played football. I was pretty popular in high school. And we had homerooms. And there were two white girls that had been in my homeroom since, 5th grade. You know, because they do it alphabetically. And their names coincided with my name, and every school that we ever went to, if we went to the same school, we were always in the same room. So we watched each other grow up. We, I thought, became friends. So much so that one of them I really liked and would have dated her. But I was afraid to even approach her. Every day I'd come in, particularly in high school, both of them would give me a hug. And I'm talking about a chest hug. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I liked both of them. Could have dated or thought I could have dated either one. Thought I was friends. Of course, we moved on, grew up, and touched base with each other one day a few years ago on social media. You know, I told y'all that I review everybody that wants to friend me. I go through your posts. But I didn't this time. I went, when I saw the name, I said, oh my God, it's so-and-so. It's Christy. Immediately took her friendship, didn't go through her social media, sent her an instant message, call me. She called me immediately. We started talking, how you been? Family this, family that, this, that, the other. What about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? And then this was prior to Trump being elected. And she started talking about how black people are this and black people that. I said, Christy, if you're saying that, what are you saying about me? She said, oh, but you're not like that. I've known you literally all my life. You're not like that. I said, but Christy, I'm black. Then as we talked, I was sitting there going through her post. And I told her before I hung up, and I've never talked to her since. I said, I was really thrilled to get back in touch with you and find out that you were doing well and this, that, and the other. I said, but this will be the last time I ever talk to you. I said, because you're not my friend. You don't view me as a human being. And she tried to protest and say, but David, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about other black people. It didn't register to her. You see, that's what racism has done to white people. They think they can pick and choose when to be racist and not be racist. And unfortunately, some black people let them get away with it. I refuse to do that, just like my good friend from college. Just like some of the guys who I played with on my college team. Anyway, we need to take a break because I want to make sure I get to some of this other thing about this boycott. And I got on a social media post, and it just kind of blew me away. It really did. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We've been talking a lot. I really spent a lot more time on this Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony thing than I expected. But everything the threads are woven throughout just about everything we do. But I want to change the focus just a little bit and start talking about our people. As you know, I started talking about the boycotting schools, black people boycotting schools years ago. At some point I want to talk to you, and I am going to talk to you about why there aren't many black people that play baseball anymore. Okay? Because that was racism as well. It was done by design. You say, well, there are black people that play baseball. Well, if you really, when they talk to you, you know that they're not. They are Hispanic born. All right? But that's another part for another show. But I've been talking about black people boycotting schools for years, long before it got popular with NAACP and D.L. Hughley and all these other people. And so since that has occurred, there's been a lot of debate back and forth. As I told you all that I am writing a book called Blue Chip Down that will be out soon about that very thing. It's a novel, but I am writing this book. So I wanted to, I've been talking about it and I've been seeing a lot of debate back and forth on social media. And we talked about, last week on the show, how the Asian guy came up and started telling people, daring black people to boycott Asian businesses. And then the post was apparently taken down. Apparently some Asians got to him and said, dude, you need to shut the hell up. Whatever they say in Chinese or Japanese or Filipino or whatever language they use, that post has disappeared. All right. But then there was another young Asian woman coming on and doing basically the same thing. And another Asian guy was on poking fun at her ignorance as well. And you're seeing a lot of black people on social media this week alone pointing black women, because one of the businesses that black women mainly cater to is hair salons and nail shops that are owned by Asians. Okay? In fact, white women don't cater to those businesses because most white women have long hair. Most. Some of them use extensions, but the majority, I would say 80% of the people who buy at these nail shops and these these beauty supply stores are black people. Okay? So I've been seeing brothers on social media literally going into these Asian businesses telling black women that, hey, don't shop here. Here's a beauty supply that is black owned and operated. Bravo. I'm loving that. Okay? So I say all that to say that this particular segment is surrounding a comment that I made on social media, or I should say that I'm following up on social media. If I can get my iPad to unfreeze here for whatever reason, that's weird. It just froze on me. So let me do this. Let me just do this. Let me just close it, because I think it's important for us to understand, and I tell people all the time, that our worst enemy is our people. We spend more money than the gross national product of Canada, more money than the 9th largest nation in the world, $2.1 trillion of economic power that flows through our community. And I won't even say power, because when you have power, that means you utilize it. We have economic money that flows through our community. Okay? So when we do that and we don't support our own businesses, it ultimately hurts our children. It destroys the potential of role models and so on and so forth. All right? So this young lady posted, and I friended her a while back. Here's what she said. She said, I don't know why that freezes every time that I try to scroll through this. All right, so I'm gonna have to do it. That's weird. So anyway, let me see if I can quickly pull it up on another platform, because I've got plenty of platforms here. But I found it interesting that our ignorance as it relates to why we're in this predicament is just stunning to me. It's just, that old saying, I have seen the enemy and it is we, is so appropriate for us. And this particular post really bothered me. And I was glad to see some of the people come on and really check this sister, because this sister didn't know what she was talking about. She just didn't know what she was talking about. And let's see, is waiting for approval. I'm sorry, but I'm having to log into something else because they are not, for whatever reasons on my iPad, it's freezing. And so it even sent that message to my iPad, and now it won't even let me close it. It's crazy. But basically the sister said that this is why she wouldn't, well, let's do this. We'll do it on my phone. All right. Okay. Yes, it's me. I'm logging in. Let's see. Login attempt, Windows. Okay. These two-step verifications are annoying, but they are needed. So I don't complain about that. But sometimes they can be annoying. Okay. So I'm going to pull this up because I want to read this to you, because it's important for us to understand what I'm talking about. So she's basically giving us a warning. And as I look through her post, she has, she's made some very interesting posts. Okay? Here's what she says. She says, Before you make the stupid decision to talk your child into turning down a full ride, aka scholarship or voucher, to a school or college that is not predominantly black or an HBCU, know this, right? She says, if the PBI, which I find it interesting that she's calling, she means a predominantly black institution, never heard that, or the HBCU is not offering the same full ride and programs in their intended major, especially STEM programs or other classes pertinent to earning a real world salary, you are 1, setting your child up for failure, 2, drowning them in debt and student loans, subjecting them to an environment full of people who will hate them because they are gifted and stop at nothing to hinder or destroy them. Nobody hates a gifted, ambitious young person more than mediocre and trifling black people, including some so-called educators. Y'all know I'm not lying. You're welcome to share this testimony. I was appalled. Because see, every person that I know that has ever attended an HBCU talk about how they're professors and how everybody was encouraging everybody. So I don't know what the hell she was talking about. Okay? Now, before I respond to that, I want to tell you what some of the people that were on the post said, because I was proud. Let's see. One lady said, the children in my family are all high achieving students. It's been split. Some of us have graduated from PWIs, and some of us graduated from HBCUs. Now we're pushing HBCUs. What makes you think HBCUs don't give out full rides? My cousins are at Hampton, Howard, and Dell State on full rides. My niece will be at Jackson State, where my family is 4th generation in August. We have a family full of athletes, and they are not attending any white college in the South. I don't care what they offer or promise. White isn't always right, and those of you who think it is came into the world ass first and never turned around. Go find a white group, please. You're in the wrong place. Loved it. MLK, here's another one. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must be never a time when we fail to protest. That was one of Dr. King's. Here's another one. The statement is not true. Black people don't hate black people more than everyone else. Whites, Asians, and Spanish hate us more than other black people. I am sure people that can't pay their children's tuition won't tell them to turn down a full ride. But in this climate, they may not be safe at a PWI. What needs to happen is the donations and sponsorships for black students and HBCUs from the black abolitionist wealthy population to ensure separate but equal education. Let me pause there. I've been telling y'all for years, y'all need to start making your own damn schools. I've been saying that for years. Anyway, we have to stop disparaging one another and pushing the propaganda that we are worse of the worst. We're not. Another one says, they'll get a full ride. Self-hate is a thing, but there's help. You should get some. Talking to the initial poster. It just goes on. And I was proud because the majority of these people, one person did say, hey man, I have 2 at PWIs and 1 at an HBCU. I'm graduating again from a PWI for the 2nd time in a year this November, and my bachelor's degree and starting my master's program immediately after. A school is a school. Okay. Another person asked that you attend an HBCU. It goes on and on and on. So because I wrote a long piece and multiple people responded to this piece, gave me likes and thumbs up and so on and so forth. I said, I hope everyone will take a trip back in history with me. And I posted a link to the Children's Crusade because I've been using that argument for years about what our children need to be. But I've been using it even more because there are people who are saying that our young black males should not boycott the SEC or should not boycott at all. Again, my book, Blue Chip Down, is about this very issue. It's a novel, but it's about this issue. Those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. Some of you weren't living in that time, and I'm referring back to 1963 when the Children's Crusade, those children came out for 5 straight days as young as 9 years old, had dogs sicked on them, water hoses turned on them, beaten by police. And of course, Malcolm X and Dr. King didn't want it to happen, but it did. I said some of you weren't living in that time, but are reaping the benefits from those children. Yet you have no conscience, you have no character or conviction for the next generation. Okay, we should stop boycotting, and more importantly, stop complaining when white supremacy continues to subliminally enslave our people. Have you ever stopped to ask why PWIs have all that money? Do you know, as of this moment, according to a Forbes report, HBCUs that are land grant colleges are owed billions of dollars dating back to the 70s by their state legislators. Yet the PWIs in the same states received at or above the allocated funding. By the way, that money that is owed to HBCUs is $12.7 billion. And that article wasn't written in a black magazine on a black website. It was written by Forbes magazine. And I attempted to go out to that magazine the other day and pull up that article, and it's now behind the paywall. It didn't used to be behind the paywall. I'm just saying. All right. Let's see here. There was talk of suing by Tennessee State University, but the state legislature used blackmail tactics behind closed doors, suggesting inspections and the like to try and decertify the school if the litigation was pursued. In other words, the state legislature started threatening some of the brass at Tennessee State. And if you went through with that legislation, that suit, and the same happened in other universities. They're trying to decertify South Carolina State, UAPB in Arkansas. It goes on and on. That's what they would do. So many of those black college professionals or those black the college brass backed off. By the way, that article in Forbes was in March of 2022. It was an in-depth report. That's a white man's magazine, by the way. This is what I wrote. Compared to their predominantly white counterparts, the nation's black land grant universities have been underfunded by at least $12.8 billion over the last 3 decades. Many are in dire straits financially and living under a cloud of violence. They also receive money from the federal government for each and every child that they count as a minority. Lastly, the Southeastern Conference distributed a record total of $1.3 billion to its 16-member universities for the year 24-25 fiscal year. The 14 schools with full year financial participation received an average of $72 million each. Hello. That's football and basketball revenue, and other non-revenue generating sports are played by whites. In other words, the scholarship money is derived from black kids who are the majority in football and basketball. Even with the NIL money, the major pushback has already begun and led by Nick Saban, who earned $150 million off of the backs of the majority black boys. There is a bigger picture here, and white supremacy depends on our ignorance to keep us enslaved. All right. The other day, and this is an analogy I wrote. All right. And as a matter of fact, let's take a break, and I'm gonna give you this part because it fits perfectly in what we must do. Okay. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Attention entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and soon-to-be 501c3 organizations. My name is David W. Coleman, and I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for funding for your business or organization? The new year is upon us, and it's time to get those grant proposals ready. Deadlines for submittals will arrive quickly, and I can help you put your best business foot forward. There are multiple funding sources available to assist you in completing your mission. You just need to know where to look. If you are new to proposal writing and need tips on where to search for funding, this seminar is for you. I'll help you demystify some of the myths relating to grant writing. I'll give you great proposal writing tips to help you get your submission in the A-pile. I'll point you to funding sources that most people ignore when pursuing assistance. It doesn't matter if you are new to the game or a veteran in this space. I have no doubt there is information you can utilize to get the dollars flowing to your business or organization. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but tried and effective methods to be successful. If you want to know more, respond with the word grants in the comments below, and I will send you information on the very next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. In the meantime, keep looking for that funding, and I'll see you at the next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. We've come to the segment that I love the most. It's called What We Must Do. Okay? And I was talking about this lady's post on Facebook based on pure ignorance and how there was so much clapback on her part. You know, because we got to stop this. I ask the question all the time. When was the last time, if you own a business, if you're a business owner, when was the last time you had a white customer? When was the last time you had an Asian customer, an Arab customer, or Hispanic customer? They don't come to your business unless you are a soul food restaurant. Because they'll come and eat your soul food. The Koreans will come and eat your soul food because then they'll try to go back to their restaurants and duplicate it. You know, Koreans will even tell you today that they fry chicken better than black folks. And what they don't tell you is that the soldiers that went to Korea to fight in the Korean War taught them how to fry fried chicken. And now they're telling you that they fry chicken better than black folks. Everybody steals from black people. Okay? Everybody. So it is important enough to understand that if they're not buying at your stores, why the hell are y'all buying at their stores? This thing has got to be reciprocal here. It makes no sense to me. You know, I love sushi, but you know what? I haven't eaten sushi now in a few years. I don't need your shrimp fried rice because I can make my own. And by the way, I clean my shrimp. Those of y'all know what I'm talking about. I clean my shrimp. I can make fried rice. I can make egg rolls. I can make egg drop soup. So when that Asian got on last week talking about, well, you're going to miss your Chinese takeout. Yeah, well, I can make shrimp teriyaki. I can make chicken teriyaki. I can make peppered steak. Hello? I don't need y'all asses. I can make dumplings. That's what black people used to do. Okay? So let me just go back to this last paragraph, because I told you on this particular post, I wrote a long paragraph. Let me just go to the last paragraph, and it's an analogy, because it's certainly appropriate for what we are dealing with today, because we are sick as a people when we won't even support our own people. The other day, it was hot. I walked to the neighborhood store to get something to cool off. There were 2 snow cone trucks at the corner. One had a line a half block long. The other had no customers. The only thing different was the paint job on the trucks. They served the same product and they bought from the same supplier. Dustin got so busy he ran out of product and then walked next door and asked Keyshawn if he could borrow some product. Y'all get that, right? I don't have to spell it out for you, but you should get it. But just in case you didn't, Dustin was the white boy. Keyshawn was the black boy. They sold the same product. They bought it from the same supplier. There was nothing different in the two. Keyshawn said yes, because he was a God-fearing man. The black people in Dustin's line lauded Keyshawn, stating that was a great gesture on his part to help a fellow businessman, and God was going to bless him. But none of those black people moved into Keyshawn's line. Y'all get this, right? Black people say, oh, bless you, Lord gonna bless you. Oh, you're such a good person. But those same black people that was lauding Christianity on Keyshawn did not move over to Keyshawn's line. They were content to stand in Dustin's line, even though Dustin was running low on product and he had to go over to Keyshawn to ask Keyshawn to borrow product. Now, if it were me, I would have told Dustin, I'm sorry, dog. Send them folks over here. You're done for the day. I'll finish them up. But Dustin, because he was a God-fearing man, and there are all kinds of allegories that are in this little story that I made up. You can extrapolate them for yourself. But because he was a God-fearing man, he told Keyshawn. Keyshawn told him that, yeah, I'll do it. And all other people looked at Keyshawn and, oh, you're such a wonderful person, and oh, God's going to bless you, and this, that, and the other. But not one of them would spend a dime with Keyshawn. Let me finish the story. When asked by me as I stood there, why don't y'all just go purchase from Keyshawn? They looked at me with disdain and began calling me names. I was told I should know, based on my age, that the white man's ice is colder. Therein lies our problem. It's not just the white man's ice. It's the Asian, it's the Arab, it's the Hispanic. All of their ice is colder. I think I mentioned last week, I'm going through physical therapy, and right next door to my physical therapy office is a busy food place. And as I sat in the waiting room sometimes, waiting to go back to get my therapy, or I'm coming out and waiting on my ride, I see all these people, black people, because this is a black area where my physical therapy, this little strip mall. See all these black people going into this business, this restaurant, and they're coming out with sacks, and I'm sitting there saying, well, that place must be pretty good, you know? So one day, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to get up, and after I got through my therapy, I was a little hungry. I was thinking to myself, well, let me just go in here and see what they got. And as I looked, the people behind the stands or the counter were Asian. One of them said, "Can I help you?" I looked at him, I said, "No, I don't think so." And I turned around and walked out. You see, it's just that simple. It's just that easy to understand my blackness. There they are making money off of all the black people, but I guarantee you they don't contribute to the black community. I told you the story about the flood that happened in Nashville back in 2010 when I was trying to help the community, and how the Arabs decided that they weren't going to contribute, even though they were making money off of the black community. We have to understand what's going on here. I have seen the enemy, and he is we. It's time for us to wake up. We're too busy. I use the phrase, sometimes you can be so heavenly minded that you are so no earthly good. Hello? Those people that were waiting for that snow cone, those snow cones, that's an example of that. They lauded Keyshawn. They loved Keyshawn. They told him how good he was and what a great person he was, and how God was going to bless him because he decided to help his fellow businessman. And Keyshawn himself was indoctrinated in that mentality as well. As opposed to Keyshawn saying, "Nope, I'm not going to give you my product. I'm going to, either they can come over here or I'm going to move to another location, but I'm not going to give you my product." Even Keyshawn had that mentality that because he was a God-fearing man. He was so heavenly minded, he was no earthly good, to the point where he was going to lose his business because black people were not even shopping with him. Hello? Remember the story I told you about the Jamaicans who burned down the Chinese resort in Jamaica a month or so ago? Because the Chinese had tried to move into this part of Jamaica, and there are parts of Jamaica where black people who are natives to that land cannot even get to that land because whites, Europeans, Chinese have bought up that land and made the resorts. Those Jamaicans had enough, and they burned down that property. And I applauded them. You see, that's what we must do. Hello? When are we going to start burning down property? And I'm not talking about literally, but figuratively. Because, see, we can burn down a lot of their property simply by not walking in their doors. And here's the funny thing about it. You walk in their doors and you say, "Hey, would you mind if I use the bathroom?" They won't even let you use the bathroom. Hello? They won't even let you use the bathroom. And that's sad. That's really sad. So as I close, let me just close with this. The greatest weapon the colonial powers have used in the past against our people has always been the ability to divide and conquer. If I take my hand and slap you, it may sting. It may sting you, but because these digits are separated. But all I have to do is put you back in your place and bring those digits together. In other words, if y'all saw the movie called Band of the Hand that came out decades ago, This white guy who was trying to teach this neighborhood how to protect itself came in and said this. If I take my finger, and I use this when I do my rites of passage count, because I talk about unity. If I take my finger and just like he said, Malcolm was saying, if I slap you, yeah, that's gonna sting. If I take my finger, I can poke you with it. But if I ball my fist up and I hit you with my fist, I can do damage. My fist is the black community. And it's time for us to stop doing this and waving and slapping and start doing this and throwing punches. I wish you peace. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. On joynetradio.com. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.